Hi, everybody. This is Lauren Baker, founder of Search Engine Journal. With me today, I have a team from CallRail, Anna Charity and Jessica J.C. Clarke, along with Nalini Prasad from BluShark Digital. Give you guys a chance to say hi. Hi, everybody. So today the team is going to be putting together and presenting on a really in-depth overview with lots of real-world examples and tips on top tips to improve your PPC lead quality and follow-up. What I really like about this is that all of us out there who are search marketers deal a lot with clicks, traffic, conversions, and then sometimes the unseen component of your conversion is the ability to follow up and educate, whether it's of how our partner CallRail fulfills that solution, and some real world examples from Nalini. Would you mind switching over to the first slide, please? Let's see if that works. Anna or Jess, were you able to the title slide?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there might be a little
bit
of
a. There we go. Okay, got it. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll make sure that we keep that lag in mind while we're presenting. So before we get started, I just wanted to go ahead and do some housekeeping for those of you who just joined, or if it's your first time attending an SEJ webinar. As you see, we're on GoToWebinar Control panel here. Well, you'll see a question box and then maybe even a chat box as well. The presentation today is going to be 45 minutes. So as you have questions, please feel free to type them into the question box. Then during the last 15 minutes of the webinar, we'll be doing a live Q&A, asking those questions to the group and getting some really in-depth and great answers. Also, over the course of the webinar, we'll also be launching 2 polls. One of these polls is going to be multiple choice. So congratulations, everybody. You're here for our first multiple choice poll during a webinar. So that's going to be the first, and the second should just be voting. We like to get 70 to 80% of you answering these polls. It really helps give a better idea of learning who we're talking to in our audience. And then that's pretty much it from a housekeeping perspective. Our hashtag is #SEJWebinar, and I'm going to let you all.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry, Lauren was coming in and out for some reason on my end.
I know, same here. I think there was a little delay. Modern technical difficulties.
Yes, no problem. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Jessica Clarke, and I'm one of your presenters for today, along with Anna and Nalini. So for today's agenda, we're obviously going to jump into some introductions first, then we're going to kick off those polls, and then we're going to talk about consumer habits and expectations, just to give a kind of lay of the land of what we're seeing out there. And then we're going to talk more about specifically customer experience, and how you can generate more qualified leads and the sources, identify the sources driving them. And then lastly, to cap it off, what you can do to increase your close rates. So as I mentioned, I'm Jessica Clarke with CallRail. I'm a senior product marketing manager here. I've been with CallRail for a little bit over a year and have experience across the gamut in marketing for technology companies in various verticals and fields. Nalini, go ahead.
Hi, fellas. I don't know if it's a little bit of a lag on mine too, so if I'm a little bit slower to answer, that's what's going on with our modern technology issues. Yeah. Nalini here from BluShark Digital. We are a full-service digital marketing agency that focuses on legal. So we help law firms stand out online, but we also have some experience with our sister companies in home services with HomeShark Digital and MedShark Digital, doing some things with medical. But speaking today broadly on what can help small businesses in general.
Awesome. Hey, I am Anna Charity. I am a senior product marketing manager here at CallRail. I got my start in advertising, but have been in the software world for the past, I'd say, 6 or so years, and looking forward to going through what we have for you today.
Great. On that, I think we're going to kick off our first poll. So which communication channels are available for your customers and prospects? I'll give you a second to answer that.
So we've just launched the poll. Which communications channels are available for your customers and prospects? Please click all that apply. So the first is email and phone. Second is online forms. Third is chat. Fourth is social. And then fifth is all of the above. So it looks like we've already had 70% of the attendees vote already, which is great. So we'll give you all a couple seconds to go ahead and fill this in, finish clicking everything that applies. Already up to 79%, so let's make it 80. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, final chance. I'm closing the poll. We had 84% of attendees vote on this, which is fantastic. It's great to see such.
That's awesome.
That's pretty low for sure. It's interesting to me.
Today.
What did you say, Nalini?
Absolutely. So, you all see.
Yeah, we can see it. There's a little bit of a choppiness going on, I think, on the GoToWebinar. All right, okay. I think we're going to move on to our second poll just to help us get a little bit more background on those who are on. So, are you interested in a tool to help you improve lead quality?
And I was saying earlier that I was surprised at how small the number of answers were for chat in today's, all the different tools that are available. I know that a lot of businesses are trying to connect quickly, right, with the leads that come to their site or even through, text message. So that one was surprising as well.
Yes. I'd be curious to know what size businesses we have on the line today. If you wouldn't mind, there's no poll for this, just sending it in the chat. All right, okay, so moving on from this poll, I think we're having a little bit of technical difficulties, but that is okay. So we're just gonna dive right in. All right, so we're gonna start talking a little bit about consumer habits and expectations. Anna, take it away.
Alrighty, so we're gonna start pretty high level, and this may seem redundant initially, but it's definitely something that you have to unpack and really consider as a marketer. We're advertising in all different channels, using different keywords, trying to optimize our messaging. As buyers, I love it. The way we buy is super fragmented as well. So here's an example. An example customer journey. So this is definitely more like of an e-commerce example, obviously, browsing a dress online, but it's definitely something that can apply to a lot of our customers. So many of our customers are in the legal space, or home services, agencies, and here's just an example. I'm sure a lot of us can relate. You may explore a specific product across various days, across various platforms, and might be evaluating a bunch of different products or services. And then oftentimes there's channel bias. A lot of times the channels are going to often work against each other to take credit for the sale. So obviously Google and Facebook is imperative for our advertising and marketing. We're not hating on them by any means. We work very closely with them, and so do our platforms, but it's best to know the source of truth, and that's really what CallRail can give you as well.
All right, thank you, Anna. Something else to note is that today's customers want to communicate on their own terms. They want to be able to communicate across multiple channels. And in fact, a lot of them may not want to do business with companies that they can't communicate with in their preferred channel. So, you'll see here, obviously email is still very much a preferred channel for many, but preferences do change as time goes on, as new technologies are introduced. And we want to make sure that you are reaching your customers in every way possible so that they feel comfortable doing business with you. Additionally, people's preferred communication channels change sometimes throughout their journey, right? Like maybe you start a conversation via email with a business, but then the next day you're multitasking and you don't have time to send an email, but you do have time to live chat with that business. So, we're all consumers as well. So just thinking about the way we like to communicate, it's interesting to note that 71% of consumers have used multiple channels to start and then complete a single transaction. So it's becoming much more common and much more expected from our consumers.
Yeah, and back to Nalini's point earlier, like I was so curious which one would win against chat or social, and it's just very obvious speaking to that poll, like we all shop in different ways and frequently bounce around.
Yeah, absolutely. Another aspect of that kind of fluidity between channels is that our consumers expect the experience to be consistent across those channels. And when they bounce from channel to channel, they don't want to have to like repeat themselves or, restate some things. So while both omni-channel and multi-channel involve selling across multiple digital and physical channels, the difference between them is really on multi-channel. With multi-channel communications, you are siloing those conversations. So there's nothing to link those conversations together. So if somebody started online in your chat and then moved to text later, they're potentially talking to a different sales rep, and they may also, not have the background into that conversation. So it's frustrating for the consumer to have to repeat themselves. So, explaining all over again, like we all can think of those examples, right, of when you call and the automated service asks you to put in your account number or something, and you do it, and then the second somebody picks up the phone, they ask for it again, just as you've put that information away. That's the same kind of frustration we're talking about here. So on the omni-channel side, on the other hand, everything in the customer journey is connected. So a consumer can expect to either stick with the same agent throughout the process or potentially even a different one that understands their background and the problem that they're trying to solve. But unfortunately, in today's world, customer expectations are not always being met. 87% of our customers today wish organizations would work harder to provide a pleasant customer experience. But it's not all negative. That means there's huge opportunity for us as businesses to fill that gap and provide a better experience and ultimately grow. So on that note, we're going to dive right into how to improve your customer experience.
So now that we know how consumers behave, right, the way to actually connect with our consumers is to know our consumers. So let's take it from a 360 view and let's come back to who is your specific audience? How can we find that information? First, being perceptive. If you have an intake system and you guys have some kind of content management system that you can look at the data there, that's one great way. For our particular purposes, when we're trying to identify an audience for our law firm clients, we're looking at the data that's coming through Google Analytics and coming through CallRail. Right? So the first thing that we can look at is, well, where geographically are these people coming from? There's different types of dialects that are used. There's different type of imagery that can appeal to certain aspects of the US, right? Whether you're talking to people in Texas or you're talking to people in New York, you're going to use different language, you're going to use different imagery. Where are the sources coming from? So what types are they coming from social media and then to your website? Are they coming from an ad that you've placed and you've spent money on? Being able to tell where your consumers are shopping tells you a little bit about their personality as well. And then are your consumers coming from filling out forms? Are they actually calling you? That may tell you a little bit about their demographics in terms of age, right? Sometimes the older folks will enjoy being on the phone while millennials are searching very much online. They're coming from social. So the next slide here basically tells us a little bit about how can we get more specific in our demographics. Once we've paid attention to the calls that we're getting, we can actually connect CallRail to Google Analytics, and all of a sudden the world is at your fingertips, right? Things that you may not actually know that you can have access to, such as even the age or the gender of the shoppers, of the folks that are coming to your website. You can also tell from browser, and I know that some people say, well, why do I even care about the browser? But you can tell if they are using Safari or Chrome. Who's using Safari? Apple users, right? How can I optimize my website for iPads or for iPhones a little bit better? There's a lot of different elements that you put into optimizing a website depending on what kind of phone they use. How can we make the call to action button much quicker and easier to get to because it's at the top of an iPhone optimized click to action, right? Other things that you can get down to is their affinity and interest. So data, always gathering data is Google and the internet, right? So if you enjoy sports, if you enjoy, maybe going to rallies, that type of stuff is actually in there in your profile as a user, and you as a business have access to all of that information. So those are just a couple of the different aspects that you can really drill into who is my audience. And on the next slide, and I'm giving you cues here for that, in terms of what do I do with that data now? Okay, great. I know what gender likes my product. I know what age likes my product. Now we have to make sure that we're taking the content that we're putting out there and we're making it very specific to those demographics, right? So making sure the keywords, as I talked about, maybe you'll say, and again, in the legal world, right? It's a car wreck in Texas. It's an automobile accident in New York. So using the right kinds of keywords in your content, using the right kind of call to actions and making sure you have call to actions are going to be very important. And then just providing a lot of ways, as you know, Anna and Jessica hammered in there, giving them ways to communicate with your business, not just one. I think the next slide here, Jessica, you might be able to speak, or Anna, a little bit more to being accessible and making sure that you have all these different windows of communication open here.
Yeah, thanks for that handoff, Nalini. So accessibility and communication together creates a greater customer experience and more customer engagement. So you want to make sure your customers can contact you when and where they want to, right? We saw earlier the differences between communication preferences. There's phone, chat, text, social, email. Gosh, I'm sure there are other things that I'm missing, but there's so many ways that you can communicate with your customers and they can communicate with you back. So making sure that your contact, you're making yourselves available for contact from everywhere. So that means obviously your website, Google My Business, your social pages, your PPC landing pages, and all those types of things. 72% of people are actually more likely to purchase from a shopping site that's communicating with them in real time and it's a real employee. And the trends actually continue, I think, throughout most industries surveyed. 60% would rather schedule their hair care appointments via text. 72% would rather book their travel with a company that communicated travel plans via text, et cetera, et cetera. So not that text is the end all be all, just as an example here. I wanted to show you a real engagement that we have from one of our customers. This is our customer speaking with one of theirs, and you'll see in that first image that a customer said, "Can you text me?" And this is the first line of communication that they've had with this business. So think about it. If this particular business did not have the ability to receive text messages on their main business phone lines, they wouldn't have seen this at all, and they certainly wouldn't have been able to start that conversation and ultimately close that customer. In the image to the right, you'll see where text can kind of come in at, like I mentioned earlier, when people are multitasking and things like that. So in this particular example, somebody from the company made a phone call to their prospect. The prospect texted back and said, "Sorry, I can't talk right now." And the company was able to continue to engage with them as well, say no problem, you know, we're just checking in, and that creates just that more fluid conversation. And again, it's something that they would have missed out on if they didn't have the ability to receive texts on their business phone lines.
I think that's a good call. Even like just setting that expectation of I can't respond now, but I will respond, eliminates that, oh, well, I'm going to go look for this other company. And I know we're going to speak to that more later, but I think, yeah, just like having that cyclical loop is huge for the customer experience.
Yeah, and it's an indicator for your business that they're interested, right? If you called, they missed your call, and they weren't interested in what you had to offer or what you were calling about, they wouldn't have bothered texting.
Absolutely. And I think everything that you just talked about there, Jessica, is really at the heart of conversions, right? Being accessible means making it easy for the consumer. So here we talk about being helpful, but this is not just being helpful on your website. It's not just being helpful in digital, but it's thinking about your business model, right? You as a business owner absolutely know that training your staff is extremely important. Jessica mentioned having the right person there at the right time, right? If you can answer those questions immediately for a consumer, it's likely they're going to buy much quicker as well. So I think thinking about making sure that your staff is employed with those answers to those frequently asked questions and routing the customer to the right person who can answer, right? Making sure that visibility is there, and that's from the very beginning, making sure that your ads are out there in front of people, or that if they're searching for your products that you are showing up, and then focusing always on relationships, making sure that you allow not just being accessible by text, but making sure they know that. Right? Okay, sorry, I know that we can't talk right now, you're busy, but you can hit me up here, right? So making sure that you are building that bond as well. As helpful as you can be, that's how you're going to be able to not just keep the leads engaged, but also find out which ones are going to be your better quality leads, which is the next section that we're going to talk about here. Is now we know who our audience is, right? How do we then take that information and turn it into, let me A/B test and now get those only diamond in the roughs. I want my solid people who are going to purchase in the next week. I want those leads, and I want to weed out the people who are just tire kickers.
Yeah, just to kind of to add to this a little bit, when we talk about arming people with visibility, we're talking about both your consumers and your staff, right? Like if the people who are engaging with your customers know more about each and every customer, if they understand the history of that customer's experience, they can provide a better service to them and build those relationships. I'm like chock full of stats today, but I found a really cool one earlier that said 86% of consumers say a smooth experience is the key to their heart. And most of them prioritize companies that don't make them constantly repeat information or send reminder inquiries. So arming your staff with visibility into all of that history of your customers just helps solidify that relationship and ultimately hopefully gets you closer to a sale.
And that's actually a great point from our perspective using CallRail, right? Throughout the different departments we have, when we're trying to help a law firm stand out, it's not just doing one thing, right? We're able to see the data that's coming in from the paid ads we're running. But from the sales side, when I'm talking to a new customer, I'm able to say, hey, look, here's the success we've had with customer B, and I'm able to access that dashboard in a second, and it can help a different aspect of your business, not just the customer you're talking to, but future customers. It helps us with all of our departments in content. How can we write better content for any kind of practice area in any geography, right? So absolutely, you're right. We use that 100% across our whole company to be able to use CallRail in 500 different ways for our purposes.
I love that.
All right, so Anna, are you taking this one here?
Yeah, I'll kick us off. But Nalini, I know you are the subject matter, expert subject matter. Y'all know what I mean. But now we're going to talk about how to actually uncover and automatically surface and generate not only more leads, but quality leads. So if you go to this next slide, I'm sure many of you are using Google Analytics. As I mentioned, they pair very well together. That's how with CallRail you're able to unlock the entire visitor journey. But there are some limitations. You're not able to understand if those are actually quality leads. It's also difficult to actually attribute. As I mentioned earlier, there's that channel bias. So Facebook is claiming, hey, we drove you 6 leads, and Google saying we drove you 6 leads, and it's difficult to actually like untangle it all. Beyond that, you're having to Frankenstein all that data. So in order to actually be efficient and drive those qualified leads, you really have to make sure that you have certain processes in place to automate that. So 70% of B2B marketers say that improving the quality of their leads is their most important objective when it comes to their lead gen strategy. So you'll see here, there's other important things: increasing sales revenue, number of leads. I got asked in another webinar I was on recently, well, don't you just want as many leads as you can? And I was kind of surprised to get that question, just because as a marketer, our budget is oftentimes so precious, and we want to be, we want to prove our ROI in the most efficient way possible, and we want to retain our clients and acquire more. And you can't do that if you're spending money towards leads that aren't converting or are gonna cancel or be a bad customer or bad fit, or are spam. There's just so many different, like Nalini said, 100 different ways you can slice it. So it's really important to have those processes in place, and we'll talk about that in a minute. If you'll go to the next slide. All right, so how do we actually prove which of these marketing activities are driving those qualified leads? So again, very heavy on the qualified. Next slide. So how it works, we took a peek at the beginning of this webinar of an example customer journey. And as we know, there's different ways that you can engage with a brand or a service or a product. So you might click on an ad, visit a web page online, search organically, you might submit a form, you might chat, you might call, you might text. So all of these are flowing in the pipeline, often at different times, and these are online and offline interactions. So it's really difficult to marry those right now. Google Analytics does a great job at the web analytics component. And then CallRail, of course, we handle the offline call tracking piece, but you really need to marry those together and have that streamlined reporting. So we basically, in the most simplified version, take all of these leads or interactions that are coming through in whatever way they are, as I've listed here, whether it's Google Ads, Facebook, whatever. We'll do a quality or qualify those leads based on criteria you've set up. And then that's going to filter back in and thus inform, as Nalini was mentioning, your messaging strategy, your SEO strategy, your PPC strategy, keyword bidding, all of that falls into those buckets, and ultimately higher return on ad spend and better insights. Next slide. Awesome. Over to you, Nalini.
I cannot stress enough what you were just saying about, you can bring the leads, but the matter of fact is people will get their report and say, okay, I've got 12 leads that came to me this month, but half of them were not quality or whatever, right? We can say we can bring the leads. And the biggest thing to keeping your customers happy is making sure that you're actually working on trying to get those leads to be more quality, right? So how do we personally do that? First and foremost, we're looking for the low hanging fruit. Where do we see that there might be some, just like in your face ways to improve, right? So thinking about, from our perspective, if we have folks that are coming in from different states for the lawyer that practices in and is barred in Florida, then that's a problem, right? I can't handle those cases. Something's going wrong with maybe negating keywords in your PPC campaign. Maybe there's something we're doing where we've been advertising on a different source, right? Maybe you paid for an ad and you forgot to tell them, hey, only Florida. So going back and quickly looking and seeing what's going on is very easy to do in CallRail for us. We're able to track all of that data, right? For the last couple of months, how long have we been getting these people from outside of the state? What have we run through it? That's one of the blinding ones. Other examples for other industries, could simply be that too. Because say you're a store, right? Store owner here. People can't just fly in to go buy your product, right? So that's one of the biggest ones, looking at your geos. And then thinking about, okay, if I look at my data and I see that I've got a lot of people calling me who are between 21 and 30. But then they end up in my pipeline, and now they're in my long-term sales news strip campaign. They're not actually converting. Now, is that a problem internally that I'm not targeting these folks correctly? I'm not speaking to them correctly when I'm actually having my intake person talk to them? Or is this product just not really their demographics, right? So asking yourself that question first and foremost to figure out how should I move on from here. On the next slide, when we're talking about how do we put new strategies in place, A/B testing. You'll hear A/B testing as a phrase all the time, right? Maybe you do it yourself. But when you A/B test, you have to be able to tell if it's working or not, right? What's the point in testing if you don't have those different types of measures in place? So this is where CallRail really comes into play for us. We're able to look at the data of what CallRail is telling us our conversion factors are and our conversion numbers are, the click-through rates and all that good stuff. And then we put the strategy in place for a month. And now let's look at that same data in CallRail and see, are we seeing an increase in that information, right? So some of the things that we particularly measure is looking at the call length. So for a call, I'm going to have all the data possible. I even have recordings, which I'll talk about in a second. But first and foremost, did the call length start to be longer? Usually, if you've got somebody on the phone longer and your intake person's doing the right thing, they're not just sitting there having a good old conversation, it means that that's going to be a qualified lead. It's going to be a quality lead, right? So one easy way to tell, is this strategy working? We have call transcripts that we look into, which is really cool because this is easy to eyeball and look at keywords really quickly to see, hey, we just changed the PPC campaign. We started using these words instead. Have we seen now that we are actually getting way more leads and way more quality leads from using that campaign? The big part here is that we take your money that you're spending on the bad, or the initial campaigns that we've created, and we're redistributing it. So you're literally getting more for your money at this point, right? And you're getting quality. And then just in general, as I mentioned, the higher conversion rates, are you seeing that in your demographics? So then the next thing that we talked about was that I can listen to those calls. Super important. You as a business owner know exactly what you're listening for because you're thinking about it as if I did that intake, how would I want it to go, right? So as you create those processes internally, it's making sure that people are not hanging up before someone answers. It's making sure that if there are questions that you're getting all the time, maybe putting a frequently asked questions page on your website or wherever that step is right before the call. You could probably avoid a lot of quick intakes or people that don't even need your services, right? So deter them right away to only get the quality folks in. And then common reasons that people are saying no to you. Maybe your intake person's forgetting to say something. Maybe you've left off a product detail that could be really important on your site. It's endless what kind of things you can learn from the call, right? These are just a few. But I think the next step here, we were going to kick it back to you guys for talking more about those sources.
Yeah, definitely. So just a couple more slides in terms of lead quality. So sources. So not only can we tell you channels, keywords, campaigns that are associated with these high value, high converting leads, we can also tell you the sources. So I'm realizing here, this is our demo environment. This is a bad screenshot, but on the right, that far right column that says qualified leads, you can actually see how many qualified leads are tied to these specific sources. And I'll talk about how we detect those in just a minute, but that's exactly what this would look like. You can even drill into the source or the leads to get down to the person and access those recordings like Nalini was just talking about. Jessica, if you'll go to the next slide. So this is how this engine kind of works. I like to think of it as like a if-then rule kind of system. So you have your call or form or text lead and soon chat. And And then in the background, we're going to record and transcribe that call. Nothing you have to do. We're just going to do it automatically. You have preset specific criteria. So let's just say you are you're in the legal practice, and any source that is Google paid that contains the key term car wreck and asks, say it contains car wreck and immediate assistance, then automatically apply $1,000, qualify it as a lead, and apply a tag. There's any variation of how you want to set it up. We even have custom rules, but this is just an example of how we take that lead, and then you'll see here the transcript on the right, those key terms that were spotted based on your automations in the background, and then how it's qualified. So again, it can be a quality, a tag, whatever you want, or a value. And by doing that, you can really customize the way you want to not only categorize and classify your leads, but the interactions as well, so that you can then go back and do really easy, as high level or granular reporting as you'd like. Next slide.
So now we're going to head into our last section here. What do you do about all this information? How can you use these strategies to increase your close rates? And, you know, I first want to pose the question, right? Like, you're investing all this time and money on your marketing to generate a higher volume of quality leads, which we just talked about how you might be able to do, but that's only half the battle. It's like planning a brilliant party and inviting everyone to it and then just disappearing, you know. There's a lot to be done once the lead comes into your funnel, and making sure that you close them can be down to a couple of really, some fairly obvious tactics, but ones nonetheless that we want you to think about. So the first is being available and responsive. Having all the communication channels in the world will not help you if you don't respond to them. We often see this as well with some of our customers, where they do get texts like the one we saw earlier, or they'll have missed calls that they just aren't responding to. And that's a challenge, right? Like, that can mean that maybe you don't have enough staff working at a particular time of day when the heaviest influx of those communications are coming in. It could mean that, you know, you have disparate tools that you're managing. So maybe you have a separate texting system, or you're texting from your mobile phone. You have your business line, of course, where phone calls are coming in. You have emails coming into an inbox. Maybe you use a live chat tool that's also on your desktop. And, you know, you're having trouble just kind of juggling all of that, and making sure that you understand which leads should be prioritized. So unfortunately, that means some of them get missed. But that's okay. Missed calls, text chats, they will happen. What is most important, though, is that you make sure to respond to those or follow up on them as quickly as possible. And keeping your customers engaged when you can't immediately speak to them is another great tip. We see a lot with our customers. They set up auto responses so that if they miss a call or somebody fills out a form on their website, they immediately send a text communication back to them that says, hey, I'm unavailable at the moment, or we're unavailable at the moment. We'd love to help you. We'll be in touch within the next 10 minutes, or whatever you want to say. And that keeps that customer engaged and stops that, you know, mass outreach that they're probably doing, depending on the business you have, right? So if somebody's having a plumbing issue and you're a plumber and you don't answer your phone, in all likelihood, they're going to continue to call other plumbers. But if they get an immediate response back from you that says, hey, somebody's going to be in touch with you within 5 minutes, they're more likely to hang on and wait for you. And then understanding something as simple as like when you're missing the most calls to your business and addressing that, right? So is it Tuesdays from 3 to 4 p.m. where you're missing the most calls? And maybe then again, that means you need to kind of shuffle your staff schedule so that you have somebody available to answer calls, or set up an answering service, or whatever you want to do for your business. But making sure that you close those gaps is going to be vital. As we've talked about, customers don't want to wait for answers. They expect 24/7 service. So not only do they want you to be able to communicate with them on multiple channels, they want you to respond quickly.
Yeah, definitely. I know it's crucial, like, oh, you're getting to it here, but yeah, being able to get in touch with your customer as soon as it's top of mind is insanely imperative. And go ahead. I'm gonna talk about my favorite CallRail feature at the end because it just gets me so excited.
So 78% of customers buy from the company that responds to their inquiry first. That's no surprise, I'm sure, to any of you guys. But some other benefits besides, just closing more deals or higher conversion rates are a better first impression of your brand overall. You're there to help them, to serve them, and they feel comfortable and confident that you're going to do that. And then it gives you a inside leg up to win those prospects, like we talked about before. If you're the first brand to respond or the first company to respond, you're seizing that opportunity and getting that customer engaged. And again, just higher conversion rates in general. So we know that creating a better experience, which we talked about earlier, obviously drives higher conversion rates, but responses that come in less than 5 minutes are 21 times more likely to help qualify leads. So that's like super important because you want those high quality leads and you want to be able to capture every opportunity that comes your way. So I'm going to go through these quickly for the sake of time, but 5 tips to improve your lead response time. So organizing leads according to recency. This seems obvious, right? But when you've got multiple channels and multiple tools, it may be difficult for you to see which one came in when. But making sure that you're closing that follow-up gap and you are prioritizing those that have come in most recently. Centralizing all of your incoming leads into a single source of truth so that you aren't having to shuffle between things, and we call it swivel chair, right? Like having to look in multiple different places. Assigning incoming leads based on availability. So you may have a person at your company that is, out of the office, on lunch break, on another call, making sure that you're not routing calls to that specific person during that time period is huge because you're not leaving people waiting or letting the phone ring endlessly or sending them to voicemail when you could be, having them speak with somebody else in your business sooner. Automated responses to start the process of engagement we talked about already. And just letting users know typically how long it takes you to respond. So like I said, maybe you send an automated text message and you say, we'll be with you in the next 10 minutes. And by the way, it's very important that you keep to that service level agreement that you're making with your customers. There's nothing more frustrating than when a company says, we'll be back in touch with you within 24 hours and it's 4 days later and you're calling them back. So this one's huge. Not letting leads slip through the cracks seems like a no-brainer, but over 60% of the consumers that we surveyed here at CallRail identified that not having leads slip through the cracks is actually a priority for improvement for their business. And so we provide tools and solutions to help with that. But again, any sort of omni-channel solution is going to help you ensure that you have that single source of truth, that all your leads are coming into one place, regardless of the channel that they're using to get in touch with you, and that you're able to address them quickly. At the same time, systems that employees have at their disposal are making it difficult, which we just spoke about. Having to juggle between disconnected communication systems takes time. And unfortunately, I think this is being conservative. It's saying frontline employees spend 10% of their time reconciling disconnected communication systems. But think about it, right? If somebody has called your business, emailed you one time, and texted you another time, like trying to piece that together without a system to help you do that is nearly impossible. So being able to identify those leads that are coming in so that you can rapidly address them is so important. And then this one, so don't go in blind. This is an interesting concept that one of our customers said to me. In the past with their phone leads in particular, they were always asking things like, what's your phone number? How did you hear about us? What type of product or service are you calling about? Have you done business with us before? And that can be a little bit off-putting for the customer. Being asked those types of questions may seem like things that you just need to know, but the longer a customer is on the phone before they get the resolution they need, the more frustrated they get. One of our customers, a paving company, deduced that the value of their first phone call or first interaction with a customer was $2,000. And so they realized that they they had to optimize that conversation, and they are also the ones that realized that people were getting more frustrated as time went on. So just an example that they gave is, somebody calls into the business from a particular number or for a particular campaign from a particular landing page, and they already know some things about that caller, right? They know their name and phone number. In the case of this customer, they had sent out a direct mail postcard to residential homes in their geographic area. So they knew that if somebody was calling about that particular campaign from that particular phone number, that they were a residential business. They knew that they were calling about a specific campaign or offer based on that postcard's information, and they could already start thinking about how they were going to approach the sale, and knew that they were going to need to apply a discount based on the communication that they got. So just having that visibility and using the tools that are out there today to eliminate the need for you to rapid fire ask questions of your customers is key. So you can see just in this image on the left, the landing page that they visited last, their phone number, the source and tracking number that they contacted you on, and then of course the entire history of every communication they've ever had with your business. And last but not least, shortening the sales cycle. So obviously we want to do all of this and we want to do it quickly. Focusing on the channels that bring the highest quality leads is the first thing you need to do. We already talked at length about this, but focusing your marketing efforts and spend on the channels that bring you the highest quality leads are going to ensure that your sales team is focused on closing only those that are most qualified, and shortening the time it would take to get a less qualified lead to close, right? And then automatically classifying or categorizing the interactions people have with your business can be something that's hugely helpful, right? So when you have to do this manually, you have to think like, how do I want to classify this particular lead? Is it an opportunity? When you have to do all that stuff manually, it can be really time consuming, which can lengthen the sales cycle overall. So having your team focus their time and energy on the most profitable customers and having those sales conversations rather than, qualifying, tagging, setting up any sort of rules, those kinds of things. You don't have to do that. You can instead set up attribution rules that happen automatically based on behaviors identified, the source, the campaign, or you can tag them for follow-up or prioritization. Anna gave a great example before. If somebody calls your plumbing business, just to go with our existing example, and says, I'm in urgent need of some help, and you have a rule set up that anytime somebody says urgent and help, that they are qualified and their tag is high priority. Leveraging a mix of communication tools can also help you shorten that sales cycle, because you can leverage those things to eliminate lengthy back and forth potentially. So if you're used to only communicating via phone, right? Like you understand the phone tag game, everybody does. I've called, I've left a message, I wait, I missed their call back, I called them back, days can go by. Same with email. I sent an email, I waited for a response, they responded, I didn't get to it right away. All of that stuff can lengthen the sales cycle. So being able to switch communication channels, like going to texting instead of calling somebody back, can be really helpful. 90% of text messages are read within 3 minutes. And I think that is huge. I also think it's important to note that our consumers today would actually prefer to respond to an unfamiliar company that contacts them via text rather than phone call. And I'm thinking that's probably because there's a little bit of a barrier, right? Like you don't actually have to have the conversation. You can instead say, who is this, or what is this about? And that gives you an opening to start a conversation that you may not have ever otherwise had if you were just continuing to call and, leave voicemails. On that note, we didn't tell you a lot about who we were at the beginning of this call, but we want to go ahead and do that. So here at CallRail, our marketing platform includes the tools your business needs to optimize marketing, drive better leads, improve customer communications, and streamline your business operations. We have 4 products that let you do that. So we integrate call tracking, form tracking, and conversation intelligence to provide insights into all the touch points in your customer journey. and then Lead Center to turn those insights into action with a unified inbox and integrated communication tools, which include a soft phone so that you can use it as your business phone, text messaging, and soon live chat for your website. So we hope you enjoyed that today. I don't know if Anna or Nalini, you have anything else to add?
You wanted to talk about one of your favorite things about CallRail. I know that.
Oh yeah, it was kind of topical. I spoke to it briefly, but basically I love for customers that are in the field or agencies that aren't always at their desk, being able to get in touch with a customer as soon as they click submit on your form is huge. We've had customers be like, it wows my clients because they will literally submit a form, it has their phone number, and they're already getting a phone call back. So that's just something that's really cool about form tracking, whereas our conversation intelligence product is what does the call recording and transcriptions that Nalini mentioned. The only other thing I had to add before passing it to Nalini is, if this is of interest to you, of tracking all of your leads online and offline in one space, pulling in your ad spend and all of the interactions along the way, you can try a 14-day free trial for free, no credit card required. A lot of other companies do require a credit card, so feel free to try it out. Nalini, anything, last words of wisdom to leave our customers?
Yeah, there's two things that I thought about that we actually use CallRail for that's very helpful too for just business owners as a tip. So if you're an agency on the line, we use the reporting from CallRail for our actual reporting to our clientele. And it is actually the thing we spend the most time on when we talk to them once a month or whatever it may be, to say, hey, which of these calls were quality, and then how can we change our strategy for you? And then we actually use CallRail for ourselves as BluShark. So if you're just a business out there who's thinking about using something, I would say, one, absolutely look at the dashboard at least once a month for your reporting. I think paying for something makes you actually utilize it, so that helps. But one thing that I love as a person that sometimes is at a conference or is not by the computer, right, is actually we've tied it so that when a call comes in, it's recorded, and then I get an email to my personal email that shows me what the phone number was that called, and then the recording that I can listen to. So if you are actually a business owner on the line right now watching this, and you're not the person that's doing the calls, it's good for two reasons. One, you can actually be in the loop right away when a call comes in, right? It's almost like, knowing that your office is coming directly to you. But two, if you have an answering service that you pay for, it's a good way to monitor them and listen to the calls that are coming in and seeing how is your call service doing, or how is your receptionist doing. It keeps tabs on them. And I use it for that purpose. So it's actually really cool to be able to hear that in real time.
Yeah, just to add to that, on the flip side, if you're a really small business and you are answering most of the calls for your business, where you have a team that is, out in the field a lot, you can actually continue to operate your business away from your desk with our mobile app. So you can answer calls that are coming into your business lines without having to forward them to a separate number. You can make phone calls, you can respond to text messages. So if you are on the smaller side and you're the person that's doing that, or you have a team that's constantly out in the field, like maybe some of our home services companies out there, and you want to continue to keep that seamless communication with your customers, you can do that using a mobile app, and that's fairly unique, right? Like most of the time when somebody's calling your business line, you are either there to answer it, or you've had to forward it to your cell phone, and maybe when you do that, you're not quite sure when a call comes in if it's a business related call or a personal related call, and that can be, just the way you answer it or handle it might be a little bit different. So we as a company are building the tools that will help you as businesses, regardless of the size of the business that you are or the type of work that you do. Make sure that you're making intelligent, informed decisions about your marketing sources, because we all know that spend is precious. And then, continuing to follow up with, communicate with, and manage your leads once they do come into your funnel.
Yep. Awesome. Well, Hi, everybody. I'm Christina. I'm from SEJ, and I'm going to jump in for some questions for Lauren. But we had a big question come in about, does CallRail integrate with CRMs like Salesforce?
Yes, we do. We do have a direct integration with Salesforce. And yeah, you can try it. It's a part of the free trial as well. If you have like a sandbox, you can try it in.
Awesome.
We also integrate with HubSpot as well, and a couple other CRMs as well as Zapier.
Great. We had another one. You had mentioned that Google Analytics can be connected to CallRail to find a device or regional data. Does CallRail also connect with Facebook to bring in those interests you had discussed? Is that for leads from Facebook or just for all leads?
I can touch on that, and Anna, if you want to contribute as well, that's fine. So here at CallRail, we realize that we don't offer necessarily every solution to everybody. So we have built our platform so that it integrates with the most commonly used marketing tools, including Facebook. So your Google Analytics and Google Ads, like we talked about earlier, and then Facebook and a bunch of other integrations as well, which you can check out if you hop over to callrail.com and start a free trial. You can see all of the integrations that we offer so that we can connect the dots between somebody you engaged with in those channels that then picked up the phone to call your business and then hopefully became a closed opportunity for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. We integrate with Facebook as well. So yeah, not only are we going to pull in ad spend from Facebook, but we'll also highlight those touch points as well.
Great. Do you integrate with ClickUp?
I'm not familiar with ClickUp actually, so I can't say why we don't.
Yeah, we can follow up. If it's on Zapier, I'd say that's the way, but yeah, I haven't heard of that one.
Alrighty. And then can call and lead touch points be used for texting along with call scripts?
I think I'm understanding the question. So can you take information from calls to then text somebody? Yes, if that's what the question is. If not, feel free to send a clarification in the chat. So our lead center enables you to have that omni-channel communication like we talked about. So you can see all of your inbound and outbound calls, text, forms, submissions, and soon live chats from your website, all in one inbox, and then be able to respond to them accordingly. So you can either click to call them. So if a text comes in and you want to call them, you can do that, or vice versa. If a call comes in and you want to text them, you can do that as well. Not sure if I answered that one, but let me know if not.
Will do. It looks like we have time for about one more question. Do you have any tips / advice for companies or clients that do not have e-commerce? Many of my clients create custom items, so our ads are leading them to a quote request form.
Yeah, so the beauty of CallRail is it helps businesses with on and offline marketing attribution. So whether you are sending them like through to a site to make a purchase or just to a site to fill out a lead form, we have a form builder as well that you can use for your forms, or you can just track the source and all that other information from the form that you already have without having to use our form builder. So it really doesn't matter if the source is on or offline, if it's e-commerce website or not, you can track all of those interactions.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a single line of code. It allows you to track the entire customer journey. So you would be able to see that they filled out that form and how they even found your form and what they did after, all along the way.
Including what keyword that you're bidding on keywords out there, right, to drive people there, and you want to know which ones are working for you and which ones aren't. So understanding that is hugely valuable in adjusting your keyword strategy as well.
Awesome. All right, I think we can squeeze in one more. Can phone numbers assigned to call tracking be the same number to the viewer but different behind the scenes for different channels?
Yeah. Exactly. That's pretty much what we do with our dynamic number insertion. If I'm understanding the question correctly, is there will be a pool of numbers and there will be a phone number that's assigned to a specific person, and it will adjust based on where they're calling from. You can also have a number tied to a specific source or channel if you'd like as well. So I don't know if Nalini, if you have like any specific examples on that, but that's typically the way we would recommend doing it.
Yeah, if they're talking about dynamic, that's all, because it just obviously changes on the website, but we specifically use phone numbers that we get through CallRail that is the correct area code for each different Google My Business. So if you have an office location in Orlando, Miami, and Jacksonville, you can have 3 different CallRail numbers that stay the same for that location, and then I can tell how many leads came into Jacksonville from your Google My Business, how many came from Miami. If you're trying to plan to do that, it works really well.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much. This was a great presentation, and I hope everybody learned something. Feel free to check them out at callrail.com, and then we will be sending out a follow-up email with some of this information, some unanswered questions, the slide deck, and the webinar early next week. So be on the lookout for that.
You can also reach out to us via email too. I'm jessica.clarke with an E at the end at callrail.com. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and email me, or you can go to our website and start your trial or request a demo.
Yeah, good call. I'm Anna at callrail.com.
Yep, and just Nalini at BluShark Digital if you have questions on how it works for our purposes.
Awesome.
Well, thank you guys. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.